What's going on, y'all? Once again, it's Coach Hussein, aka the Militant One. Fight Camp Eternal. Now I know y'all been seeing this picture. Y'all heard this debate about 100 men versus a silverback gorilla. Now it's really just a gorilla, but let's just make it a silverback gorilla. Because if it's 100 men, let's make it the strongest gorilla we can find, which is the silverback gorilla. One thing that I've been doing since this is I've been looking at people's responses. I've been looking at how people were saying that the gorilla would easily get overwhelmed by 100 men. You have people talking about the tactics that the 100 men can use. You have some people that say that the gorilla will win. And I'm inclined to choose the gorilla. And here's why. Here are the reasons why, in no particular order. Number one, just look at the gorilla, the silverback gorilla. At its strongest, the silverback gorilla can lift roughly one quarter a ton, okay? That's how much they can bench press. They can also throw heavy objects, the most being about 1,300 pounds. That's over half a ton. Okay, so they can throw large objects that weigh over half a ton. Now you think about the striking strength of the gorilla, the striking power of a gorilla, and I just want to throw this out there. I saw a gorilla right at a zoo. I watched this on YouTube. I went and saw a gorilla take a light jog towards the glass, and with both his fists pound the glass. Now this is tempered glass. I'm pretty sure tempered glass is reinforced glass. And the glass cracked. Okay? So imagine a gorilla running at you at full speed at the way. Mind you, silverback gorilla can also reach speeds of 25 miles an hour. Okay? That's 3 miles shorter minimum, 3 miles less than how fast a human being can run. Okay? So look at those physical attributes of the gorilla. Right. Then by nature they just have a great muscular build, something that a human being has to actually strive for. So if you look at those attributes, I don't see a gorilla losing to 100 men. Okay, that's number one. Number two, let's look at the 100 men. Because you're going to take 100 men and put them in a cage, a large cage obviously, against one silverback gorilla. So, this quote that I'm about to hit you with, or paraphrase, I'm trying not to butcher it. I first seen this said by David Goggins. and it goes, out of 100 men that go to war, 10 of them don't want to be there. The other 80 are targets. 80 of them are targets. Only 9 of them can actually fight and are fighters, and one of them is a true warrior. Let's see where I stepped in. Okay, it's not feces, so good luck. So that means for every 10 men, out of those 100 men, you got one of them that actually will fight. You think once they see the gorilla take out X amount of men, let's just say they take out the first 10 men, you think the other 90 are going to be so gung-ho, or the 80 of them aren't going to be gung-ho to fight? All right, we already planned that out. Then you have to take into account the fact that, let me just throw this out there, because when I first got wind of this, I said one thing to myself and one thing only. A pit bull will clear out an entire block. Okay, a pit bull off the leash, rabid pit bull, it's going to clear out the entire block. So, and I'll tell you a personal story. There's been 2 instances actually in my life where a wild dog basically had everybody running. One when I was younger, and one when I was older. A couple friends of mine and a guy I didn't even know, we all ran up in our house to keep ourselves from being attacked by the pit bull. Now, I'm not talking about guys, because I'm 6 foot 180. I had a friend of mine, he's like 6'3", well over 200 pounds, and he's running from the pit bull. Okay, another guy who's about the same size as him, he's like 6'1". He weighs more than me. I didn't even know this guy at all, but we all running from the pit bull, so we run inside my house. So if we're running from a pit bull, what are we going to do against a gorilla? Okay? Really, what are we going to do against a gorilla? Next to nothing, to be honest with you. And trauma is a real thing. If you see someone getting their face pounded into the ground or seeing their arm get ripped off, because a gorilla is legitimately strong enough to rip a person's head off. Okay? You ever seen Invincible, the first episode? What Omni-Man did, the Red Rush? Yeah, a gorilla can legitimately do that to a human being. Okay? Now I hear all these things about strategy, what the human beings could do, you know, what they couldn't do, all this other extra stuff. You know, all they gotta do was hold the gorilla down and you know, we would just stomp the gorilla out. First of all, this brings us to my third point. The fighting ability and strategy and acumen of men. I actually did some research. I looked it up. I didn't do extensively, but they said about 2% of the world's men, the world's population actually, only 2% know how to fight. So what percentage of men do you think actually know how to fight in that 100 men, of those 100 men that are fighting against the gorilla? I'll say it's probably less than 1%. Okay? And these men don't really know much about strategy. They don't have to think about strategy on the fly. And once that gorilla recognizes and senses that it's going to have to fight its way out, that gorilla literally going to go ape shit. You know, it's a bad joke, but that's just the truth. It's going to happen. So, continuing on the third point, how many men do you know actually know how to fight? Actually build themselves and prepare themselves for a fight, okay? Most men aren't doing that. To this day, they're not doing that, okay? I actually just watched a video of Sensei Seth, who went around the park in New York, went around New York City, and just asked random people, you know, do you know how to fight? What makes you confident in your ability to fight? And if you had to get into a fight, how would you fare? Most of those people gave honest assessments of themselves. They said straight up, I probably would lose in a fight. I'd probably run from a fight. You know, I'd rather not fight if I didn't have to. Okay. So when you take all these things into account versus a gorilla, let's just be realistic. It's not impossible, I said this already, for 100 men to overwhelm a gorilla. But between the 100 men and the gorilla has no problem taking someone's head off. Human beings actually do. They'll talk like they built like that, but in reality, no, they're not. No, they're not. You got human beings who won't even step foot inside of an MMA gym or a boxing gym, and all of a sudden you gonna take down a gorilla? You're not doing that. Another thing also I want to mention is you got people, once again, they're talking strategy. All I gotta do is kick the gorilla in the nuts, I'll poke his eyes out and all this other stuff. If you wouldn't do that against an actual human being, how are we just gonna all of a sudden do that against, you know, a gorilla who's way more durable than a human being? Okay? And let's not talk about stamina, because most people don't have the stamina for a fight. The average street fight is about 20 or 30 seconds. No one, like, it's a street fight in reality is just a war of attrition. Okay? That's really what a street fight is. And if you look at how animals fight, it's the same thing. So the logic and belief that we're going to all of a sudden instinctively do something that we've never done before makes no sense. You're not gouging a gorilla's eyes out. You're not kicking a gorilla in the nuts. You're not doing any of those things. Okay? It's a 500-pound animal, strong enough to tear you limb from limb. And you mean to tell me that you're just going to all of a sudden just do these things out of nowhere that you've never done to a human being? You're not doing that. Okay? If you've never done that in any of the fights you've been in, you're not going to all of a sudden think to yourself to do that. You're not going to be strategic when you've never been strategic. Things just don't happen like that. Okay? A strategic person functions strategically because they taught themselves how to be strategic in situations. Okay? Put someone in, like I said, put someone in a boxing match and tell them to box, and then they have to box. They're going to go off of osmosis, what they see other fighters do. But in reality, once they get hit, they'll see red. They're not doing that. Okay? So, my assessment of this whole thing, it really just comes down to whether or not human beings are actually willing to fight. Okay? I would say that the gorilla 100 men would not leave a cage against a gorilla unscathed. It's not happening. Okay, the gorilla is going to take some bodies with it. Period, point blank. Okay, I'd say out of 100 men, the gorilla is going to kill at least 25 to 30. All right, and the men that kill those gorillas are the ones that's going to actually be gung-ho to try to kill the gorilla. All right, because let's say you send wave after wave, so you send 10 men, 6 to 10 men after the gorilla. Then what happens? After you send 6 to 10 men after the gorilla, you know what's going to happen? The gorilla's going to go through them. And then the other 190 men after that, they're going to be shook. Because the gorilla's going to devastatingly and shockingly destroy those men. Like, let's just be honest about this. So, what it really goes down to is, are you okay with putting your life on the line and dying? Because if you're not, don't even bother trying to engage a gorilla. All right? My money's on the gorilla, like I said. Okay. I don't see 100 men surviving a gorilla. Okay. If you're running from a pit bull, you're not doing anything to a gorilla. All right. I know this has been a long video, but I just really wanted to get this off my chest. All right. But most importantly, if you're watching this video, if you watch to the end, I just got one message for you: train, learn how to fight. Okay. I wouldn't care if you got together with your homies and y'all decide to teach each other based on what you've seen and everything like that. As long as you are putting yourself through the ringer and teaching yourself how to fight, you got an advantage. And as men, like I said before, you're obligated to do that anyway. That's my video for today. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Until then, train daily. I'm out.